Well, cue the Sarah McLachlan music because Kenny Pickett's time in Cleveland is over. It was short. It was sweet. It was memorable for all the wrong reasons, I guess. And Kenny Pickett no longer a member of the Cleveland Browns. I'm Spencer German, Anthony Moeglin alongside as we react to the big news from Monday, right before less than 24 hours before the deadline to cut the roster down to 53 players. Browns seemed poised to keep 4 quarterbacks, and they're now only going to keep 3, it seems. Well, for now, because we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson, I guess. That's always kind of lurking in the background. But they send Kenny Pickett to the Raiders for a 5th-round pick, and there's a lot to dissect here, a number of different angles, including what it means for the quarterback room and what the return was and all this different stuff. But Megs, we'll just kind of start with, I guess, initial reactions to this decision by the Cleveland Browns to not keep 4 quarterbacks and go with the standard 3 instead, and sort of maybe accelerate a little bit here how quickly we could potentially see Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, it's such a Browns move. Back-to-back days, you get rid of a Pro Bowl quarterback and a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Obviously, the Browns don't know what they're doing, but no, it was something that I think you and I saw kind of from a mile away. At least that's the way I've kind of seen this. Is like you just can't. I didn't think they were going to have 4 quarterbacks. Obviously, you're a little bit closer to the team than I am, and you stood on it pretty well. Like, hey, if there wasn't an injury that expected that this team was going to keep 4 quarterbacks, but obviously the chips fall where they may. And in the NFL, stuff changes right instantly. Aiden O'Connell gets injured, and now the Raiders are heavily in the market. The crazy part is that, the Browns were able to deal Kenny back for that 5th-round pick that they basically traded away for him. So they basically come out even on a trade that, was an insurance policy. I think you and I both banged that drum pretty loudly. Like, hey, this was what they were going into the season with before they knew they could get Flacco, before they knew they could draft Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Like, Kenny Pickett was their insurance blanket, and their quarterback room shook out pretty well. And there wasn't enough room for everybody, and he gets to go to Vegas now and try to restart there. But I think a great trade for Cleveland, one that I'm excited about because, like, man, I always just thought like what it would be like when you roll Kenny Pickett out there, and Browns fans know what Kenny Pickett brings to the table. We watched him in Pittsburgh for all those years. How you sell the fan base on that and the team on that would have been really, really hard. So I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a solid move here for the Browns.
Yeah, listen, I you hit a lot there. The 5th-round pick. I understand technically the Browns gave up more for Pickett than they're getting back here. But like, keep in mind the Eagles just waived DTR. So in the end, if the Browns wanted to bring DTR back, they said essentially could. But in the end, because you got a 5th-round pick back after trading Pickett, you essentially traded DTR for Kenny Pickett straight up, is a kind of how it all kind of comes out in the wash in the end, which I think you would take, that deal as if it was just kind of like 1 for 1. And so from that standpoint, like, I think it's a smart move by Andrew Berry. And here's the thing, because you mentioned it, like, I'd been saying for a while, I just thought there was no way they were going to keep 4. And then I think the last couple of weeks that's those sentiments changed for me. Some of that is being around the team and just kind of getting the sense of like where they're at with things. Andrew Berry pretty much all but confirmed like they were comfortable keeping 4 on the broadcast over the weekend in that Rams game.
Yeah.
And it was trending towards them keeping 4. I don't think this is like a gotcha thing where it's like the Browns are like, haha, we fooled. Like, I think they legitimately were going to keep 4. And if you think about it, like, to have that trade happen, you kind of have to be ready to keep 4 because you can't say to the Raiders as they call you, hey, we're going to keep 4 quarterbacks. Like, they'll just call your bluff, right? They'll just be like, right. Okay, sure. You're going to like they could have just called your bluff. And then once you cut them, they could have been like, all right, now we get our backup quarterback. Like, to me, that tells me that they made it pretty clear to the Raiders, like, no, we're keeping 4. So if you want this guy, you're going to have to give us the compensation that we're asking for. And it was a 5th-round pick that they get back in return to sort of make it happen. So that's why I think that actually, I think to me, proves even further that they were ready to keep 4 quarterbacks come Tuesday. And yeah, like I think in terms of like the return, like I think Andrew Berry sort of comes out looking pretty good in this. I actually think like this kind of is like a final move of his offseason that I think is probably, and I'm willing to say this, I said it on another platform as well. I think this is probably his strongest offseason as a GM here for the Browns. And that is projecting a little bit in terms of what these rookies are going to bring to the table. But it looks like Carson Schwarzenegger's a stud. It looks like Mason Graham's going to be a stud. It looks like Harold Fannin Jr., I don't know if we can say stud yet, but he looks like he's going to be so important. He's going to be so important to this offense that like he has a chance to really evolve and be important here pretty early on and pretty quickly. So like between his draft class, that looks like he's got a bunch of hits in here. Yes, I know the Quinshon thing is unfortunate. I said a while ago I don't blame Andrew Berry specifically for drafting Quinshon when there was no red flags. And if he comes back, I think he still has a chance to be a really dominant player for what it's worth whenever he gets in the building. But like aside from that, like I think they made with little resources, they made a lot with a little in free agency. They bolstered some certain areas that I think make a lot of sense, and now their draft class looks poised for a really good strong year. And one of the trades you made for a quarterback, you basically came out clean with it, and you now have 10 picks already stockpiled for 2026. Like he's positioned this team well in a situation that's not great to dig themselves out of this hole, as Jimmy Haslam said back at the owners meetings, and try to kind of get back on track here. If his job isn't on the line, if they're going to be back next year, I think they're well positioned to continue digging themselves out of this hole.
Jeremy, you kind of stopped halfway through. I mean, some of the other names, Dylan Sampson, right? He's going to have an increased role. He looks solid early on. Dylan Gabriel's kind of been the star of camp, the star of the preseason, at least, like seeing him develop and really.
Can we say that when Shedeur Sanders is on?
No, wait. I gotta take that back. I gotta be careful. But like seeing him develop and be the guy that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski have been like so adamant from the day they drafted him, like, hey, this is the guy we wanted. And you're like, there's no way. And every report that everyone outside the building got was like, this kid can't make throws. Like he cannot throw the football. And then he comes out and he's not perfect by any means, and certainly understand that he was playing against backups for sure, but like doing everything you need him to do. And the ball jumps out of his hands. He's deadly accurate, and all those things are good for him. And you didn't even mention the other first round pick that they got in that trade. But I think what really stands out to me, it was something that I go back to the day they re-signed Myles Garrett, right? And they give him all this money and basically put their foot in the ground and said, no, we're not rebuilding. We're going to try to get the core group of guys who played in the playoffs, who were a part of the 2018 and 2019 drafts, who were here for 0-16 and 1-15. Like the guys that are still left, we're going to try to continue to win with them. That's David Njoku. That's Myles Garrett. That's Joel Bitonio. Some of those guys. And you're like, that's not going to work. Like you can't be in the NFL. You can't be kind of half in, half out, because then you go, then you're kind of just in this purgatory. Yeah. So I was definitely skeptical there. But Spence, you nailed it. They're set up for the next couple of years. They're set up for the future.
At least it looks that way, yeah.
But there's reason to believe that they can be competitive, at least a tough team to beat. I'm not saying they're going to go win 15 games next year, but you're not going to be able to roll up against the Browns and just roll your team out there and win. Like you never know what Joe Flacco is going to be on Sundays. He could be 3-pick Joe Flacco. He could also be 400 yards and 4-touchdown Joe Flacco. Like that's a real thing. And like this defense could be solid. This offense could do enough to keep you competitive in games. And that's what you got to do when you have a veteran-laden group like this Browns team has, that, hey, you're going to be competitive on Sundays this year. And, hey, young guys, you're going to be a good team in 3, 4, 5 years to come.
Yeah, and I said after the game, like, they didn't need Kenny Pickett in this room if they really didn't want to keep him. I think you saw enough from Dylan Gabriel. And even I know Shedeur Sanders kind of ended on a sour note with his performance on Saturday. Which we'll talk about that a little bit more here coming up. But I think like both these quarterbacks from start to finish camp through preseason, even dating back to like the spring, like they showed you enough that like you should have confidence in them. And I think that can't be understated here either. Moving on from Kenny Pickett also speaks to how this team feels about where these two rookies are at. Even though they're both rookies and even though they both have things to still learn and get better at, I think that's pretty clear based on how Saturday went, especially for Shedeur. Like There's room for improvement, of course. Most rookies, they are going to have a little bit of a learning curve. There's going to be things that they have to get better. The Shedeurs even talked about, like, I know I have things I have to get better. Dylan said that.
Yeah.
So they both know that, but the Browns being willing to move off of Kenny Pickett says, hey, we think these two guys are ready for more. Mm-hmm. And I think that can't be understated here either. I also think it's important, Megs, because a four quarterback room, like, just makes I'm sorry if they had started the year like that. Like, I get why they were trending that direction and why it would have made some sense, but I would have been sitting here like pulling my hair out, just asking, like, what is the plan? What is the plan here? Like, you have two rookie quarterbacks. I get that maybe you didn't plan on taking two quarterbacks going into draft weekend. It just kind of happened that way. And that's fine. Like, I like the fact that you can be malleable and adjust as things kind of change with the board. And Shedeur was there in the 5th round. You're like, we're going to take him. Great. I'm glad he's here. I think he has a chance to be a really good quarterback in this league, and I hope it's for the Browns. But to me, it just made zero sense to have this room go from, hey, we're going to start Joe Flacco, and then maybe like 6 or 7 games in, things aren't going great, and you're like, all right, well, let's do 4 games with Kenny Pickett. And now you're in like week 11. You got 6 games left, and you're like, okay, now we're pivoting to these rookies, and you get like 3 games apiece for each of them, or like 4 games and 2 games, or whatever it would end up being. I just, like, that to me was going to be such a waste of time.
Yeah.
Given where this team is at, given that they haven't been able to find a franchise quarterback for almost 30 years, you need to get the clearest picture of who these guys are as possible. And even if they have 10 games and they split it between the two, let's just say Flacco starts 7 or something like that, and then they split 10 between the two. That still isn't enough, like, of a sample size to really know who these guys are. And they're going to still need more time. But at the same time, the more games you have available to those rookies, the more chances you have to evaluate them, the more snaps you're giving them. That's what I want. That's what I want because that to me is a plan. Not like kicking the can down the road on when you're going to get to these rookies, especially when you're positioned with 2 first-round picks next year and everyone's already talking about the next quarterback you're going to draft in 2026. Like, you got to get at least some picture of who these guys are to know, do you need a quarterback in 2026? Maybe you don't get that full answer by the end of the season, but at least now you know we're going to see these guys sooner. And that to me makes a lot more sense than shoehorning Kenny Pickett in just because you like Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. And I would ask you this question because, and kind of off taking a different route than the Kenny Pickett angle, but like, in your opinion, right, put your coach hat on or your GM hat on, like what is that line? Like at what point do you pull the plug on, all right, the Joe Flacco experience, the Browns are 2-4, the Browns are 4-2, or hey, let's say that week 10, they're 8-2. Like, obviously at that point you're in contention and you're not able to evaluate. But like, in your opinion, like, where is that line? Because that's going to be the tough part, in my opinion, to kind of balance.
Yeah, I mean, there's always different like paths this could take. It's like a choose your own ending book sort of thing, because they could be playing well and maybe still sort of winning, but like Flacco could be playing terribly, and would Kevin Stefanski be like, all right, you know what, we need to like get a spark going here because the offense is sort of struggling and I'm worried about the direction it's trending, and that could be a way it happens. I think most of us are really envisioning though that it's like Flacco starts because you need somebody to kind of navigate the early portion of the schedule, and then you might get to like week 6 or 7 and have like 4 or 5 losses and be like, all right, well, this isn't really going the way that we planned, and then you make a switch. I think that's probably the more realistic way.
Yeah.
And listen, if he's playing well and they're winning, I understand where people are going to still want to see these rookies, but they would put that aside. The desire to see the rookies isn't going to be as strong as fans being happy and excited about their team being in the playoff picture if that were to happen that way. So I think they'd put that on the back burner. It's interesting because like if Flacco's playing poorly but the team's like still sort of barely winning, would Kevin Stefanski stand by Joe Flacco? I don't know. Like he stood by Deshaun Watson through some of the worst performances I've ever seen in my life of a quarterback in the NFL. And so who knows, but it kind of comes in different iterations in that way. But I do think the version people think is going to happen is like, well, they got this tough schedule to start out. It's Joe Flacco at 40. What's he really going to give you? And they'll just eventually fall, like the wheels will fall off enough where they're like, okay, time to go to the rookies because they're not really going to have anything to play for. And so that's kind of the way I'm envisioning that it goes. But I don't know. I mean, I have kind of circled week. What week is it? Now I got to like pull it up and double check.
I got the bye week. The first 8 weeks are tough. Like it's a tough schedule, and then they play.
See, but I don't think I for me it's that Dolphins game.
Well, so
that Dolphins game is the first game where it's like, so that's what, week 7? Yeah, week 7.
And then they go Patriots right after that.
I mean, Patriots are going to be tough because it's Mike Vrabel, but I don't know that the Patriots are going to be like a really good team this year. So, like, that's the sort of section for me where it's like, okay, dude, if you wanted to pivot, you could pivot, but you're right. Also, like maybe they would stick it out with Flacco through those 2 games.
What if
and then you get the bye week and you have an extra week to kind of get a rookie ready. That's better.
And also, Spence, like, what if we are going into week 7, so you'd have 6 games under your belt. So if you're 2-4 or 3-3, and you're like, oh man, we could win 2. You're going to beat the Dolphins. Maybe you're back to 500, or maybe you're over 500, and then you're looking at that Patriots game. And you're like, holy cow, we might be 2 games over 500.
I've been saying 6 games for Flacco, but I now that we're talking about this out loud, I think your thought is probably more accurate. I think the bye week is probably the point where it's like, now's the time to make a change, because you'll have like you're right. I don't think Kevin Stefanski is going to pull the plug on his starter until he feels like the season's like really sort of in jeopardy here.
You're not going to know,
and yeah, like you said, like unless you're like or like 1 in how many games through New England is what? That's 8 games.
Yes.
So if you're like 1 in 7. Then you might be like, okay, we know we're in trouble. But like you said, if you're like 3-4, then now it's a different story where it's like, okay, like, hey, 1 win, we're back to 500. Then you never. So you're probably right. The bye week is probably more so the right area where things will get evaluated and reassessed. I just am more anxious, I guess, to see these rookies. So I'm like, give me the Dolphins game. The Dolphins. I honestly think the Dolphins are going to stink this year.
Well, they're going to be bad.
They seem like a team in turmoil. So that seems like a perfect place for a rookie to start, but it probably still going to be Flacco at that point unless he gets hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a ton of thoughts going.
How many wins do you think they're getting in the opening stretch? I guess is the question.
7, probably. I mean,
Jesus Christ.
No, I mean, but okay. So the opening stretch is impossible, but you got this. You go Cincinnati.
I mean, I'll tell you this: I've already predicted on multiple places that the Browns are starting 1-0.
Well,
I've put it in stone. That Bengals defense looks bad. I know they just got things worked out with Hendrickson. I don't think that changes much.
Spencer,
I think Flacco's going to throw for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Germ, do you remember the 1 year, 2000 something or another, Chad Ochocinco versus, I don't even know, it was 51-48 was the final. It was in Cincinnati. Like this has the potential to be that. Like I could imagine Joe Burrow throwing 5 touchdowns to Jamar Chase having 3, him grittying up down West 6th Street. But then Joe Flacco being like, hey, or Kevin Stefanski being like, hey, we're going to run it down your throat, and then send Jerry Jeudy just like go, go, go balls. And you're like, all right, maybe this game is an absolute shit. I think it's going to be a shootout. Like I do think the Browns have a good chance to win too.
Well, but the reason it might not be a shootout is because the Browns defense might be good enough to like slow down Burrow a few times.
Correct.
He struggles early in the season. The Bengals always start 0-4. I just have enough evidence to tell me like this could be a game the Browns win.
Okay, so let's play
a little tease to our prediction because we're doing our prediction piece again this year.
So
I think the Browns start 1-0. I'm telling you that right now.
They start 1-0 and then they go to Baltimore. Is that
Baltimore
correct?
Started 0-2 last year? I'm going to start talking you into all these. You're going to be like,
well,
you're going to get to you'll get to 7-0 here quick. You will.
You don't got you don't got to talk me into anything, dude. And then you bring. Okay, so let's just be realistic.
Are the Packers that good, by the way? Are the Packers like really as good as everyone thinks?
Sure, you're going to get me to 8-0. I think they're good, but they might not be. Then you go to Detroit. Let's say, okay, let's be real. You lose
I think
to the
Lions
Ravens.
and Vikings are tough. The Steelers are tough. The Ravens are tough too. I think I'm gonna be honest. This opening stretch, I kind of feel like
it's
there's
brutal.
like 2. I'm kind of saying 2 out of 6 is where they're at after 6 games, and then you get the Dolphins and the Patriots, and you see where you go from there.
What if JJ McCarthy stinks for the Vikings? Like,
I brought this up.
So let's just say let's play devil's advocate here. You beat the Bengals in week 1. You lose to the Ravens. Let's say you lose to the Packers at home, then you lose to the Lions. You're 1-3. And let's say you beat the Vikings in London. Now you're 2-3. Now you're going to Pittsburgh, and you're like, all right, we've never gone into Pittsburgh in the last 8 years
Just
with a quarterback.
just write it in as an L, man. They ain't gonna win that game.
Joe Flacco's different. In every other quarterback, Baker can't win in Pittsburgh. Deshaun certainly couldn't win in Pittsburgh. DTR couldn't win in Pittsburgh. Joe Flacco can win in Pittsburgh now. Joe Flacco can win in Pittsburgh. He's done it before.
Have we seen him win? Yeah, I mean, I guess back in the day when he was with Baltimore, yeah. But
okay, so let's say they lose it. They're 2-4, and now you're going to the Dolphins. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're 2-4 going to the Dolphins.
You win that game, you're 3-4.
You're 3-4. You feel like you should beat the Patriots. Now you're 4-4 going to the bye week, and you come out with the Jets and then home against the Raiders.
And that's honestly the worst case scenario, because then you don't get to these rookies until like, even without Kenny Pickett in the picture, you're not getting to these rookies until like week 13, and that's like
especially when you come out of this and you're looking at the bye week. If you're going to the bye week at 4-4, then you look at your next 5 games, and it's Jets, Ravens, Raiders, 49ers, Titans. You feel like you should beat the Jets. You probably feel like you can beat the Raiders. You don't know what the 49ers are going to be.
You know what? Screw it.
You can beat the Titans.
Wild card team this year, Cleveland Browns. I'm kidding. I'm not actually predicting that. I've said 6 wins. I've said 6 wins. I'm sticking with 6 wins.
Hammer the over 5.5.
We have time to play the schedule game, but the point remains that if they're teetering on like a 500 record, or they're like not that far behind, it prolongs for sure how long Flacco's out there, and then when they get to the rookies. And I think that's a scenario that people don't necessarily want to see, because they want to see these rookies sooner. But the worst thing that can happen is they're like average. If they're really good and Flacco's like balling like 2023, people will be happy about that. If he stinks and they get to the rookies by my prediction of like week 7, everyone's going to be happy about that, because they're going to be like, all right, now we get to see Dylan Gabriel. Now we get to see Shedeur Sanders. If they're just average, though, and they're sort of going through the season average and they can't get to the rookies, that's, I think, the worst outcome that comes out of this. So they either need to be really good or they need to be really bad. That's the kind of, I think, bottom line here. Can we also, before we get out of here, we need to hit on the fact that, like, being on the beat this year and closer to the situation, like, everybody just needs to take a chill pill. Like everyone needs to take a step back. Everyone needs to just like take a deep breath. It's going to be okay, because some of these narratives that have been spun largely nationally, but also just on social media, and in the social media part of it, I kind of care about less. But there's definitely some of the narratives that have come out of Browns training camp on a national level have been absolutely otherworldly, preposterous, and I just don't understand where, like, what the, like, be informed, like, talk to people who are here. I'm not even saying me, I'm talking about like other people. Like Mary Kay Cabot's really well known, like she has connections. Like nobody nationally wants to like reach out to her and be like, hey, what's your read on this situation? They just guess. And I know some of it's entertainment, you're trying to spark controversy, shows like First Take and stuff, that's what their goal is. But I just can't wrap my head around the people who started these, like, the Browns are sabotaging Shedeur narrative. And they're like, okay, so here's the thing. If you want to sit here and tell me that you don't think Shedeur got the best opportunities at times to perform, I will hear you on that. He was playing with the threes a lot. He didn't have the best receivers. He didn't have the best offensive line. So there is some truth to the fact that, like, yeah, he's lower on the depth chart. He didn't get the best circumstances around him to perform. I will give you that. I will concede that. And I agree that that was an issue. I also agree, by the way, that he should have played that last series on Saturday. It was stupid that they let Tyler Huntley do it when they were going to cut Tyler Huntley the next day, and they did cut Tyler Huntley the next day. That made no sense to me either. But where I think we lost the what's the phrase? Where I think we lost the plot. Yeah, where I think we lost the plot is when this Shedeur fanfare, which is a lot of fun to be part of here in Cleveland, when this Shedeur fanfare became, well, Kevin Stefanski was calling a completely different offense for him than he was Dylan Gabriel. Like he took his play sheet and just like threw it into the stands and said, here you go, and pulled a new play sheet out. That was like, here's our plays to make Shedeur look bad. And the people who are out here trying to say that the Browns' goal is to sabotage Shedeur Sanders. Guys, this franchise hasn't had a franchise quarterback since the 90s. Like, it's been 30 plus, it's been 3 decades. It's been 3 decades since they had a franchise quarterback. Do you really think that their grand plan was, hey, let's draft Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, and then we're gonna ruin his career, and we're gonna do all these things to make him look like what? What are we doing? What are we talking about? You think this franchise has given everybody outside of Cleveland so millions of reasons to laugh at them. They're the low-hanging fruit of the NFL, so much so that when they signed Tyler Huntley a couple weeks ago, everybody was like, "Oh, classic Browns. How many quarterbacks do you need?" Like they are the butt of the joke all the time. You think they want to be more the butt of the joke by being like, "Hey, we drafted this quarterback and we're going to make him look like complete garbage. That's our plan." Like, what are we talking about? And now it's spiraled into Kevin Stefanski's racist. It has spiraled into levels that I didn't even know were possible. And I just need everybody to stop and think for a second. Like people like Emory Hunt, who I thought was a smart individual who knew football, is saying like he wasn't calling the same offense. And I'm like, dude, like, do you watch the film? Like they were doing similar things with both these quarterbacks because those are concepts that like rookie quarterbacks can really understand, really grasp, and run effectively. It's like the levels concepts things, the flood concept. It's like different things that they were running that make it easy for the quarterback to see and get the ball out. Shedeur just didn't have a good day, and that's okay. But there doesn't have to be some grand conspiracy theory here, and I'm over it. I'm over it. It's absurd. I love Shedeur. I want him to be the quarterback of this team for years to come because I've been championing him since the combine. You know this, Megs. But like, sure? Can we all just chill?
That is not what our comments. That is not what your mentions say on Twitter.
Can we all just chill? like there's not some conspiracy theory going on.
The takes this past week were absurd. So like my perspective of the weekend, I wasn't able to watch the game. I had something prior. I had prior commitments. I was kind of tied up and was like out of Browns land for a couple hours, for the whole weekend. I get on X on Saturday evening, and I'm like, "Holy cow, dude! What happened? Oh, what the hell happened? Did he kill a bunch of puppies? Like, what did Kevin Stefanski do? Like, is this the worst human being ever?" And it turns out that no, Shedeur just had a bad day. And you said it perfectly. That is okay. Like, he literally looked like a guy who, hey, 2 weeks ago played very well and kind of showed signs of correcting his wrongs, the drifting in the pocket, the quicker decisions. Like, hey, he was doing it. He was on time, on target. And then he looked like a guy who didn't practice for a couple of days, was fighting off an injury, and then kind of just reverted back to his old ways. That's what young players do. Like newsflash, young players do that. The tipping point that this weekend was for this craziness was like, all right, this is just way over the top of like, hey, it's not that he can never be ready or never be the guy. He's got a lot of work to do. It's very obvious. You don't got to go and RG3 and everybody, Chad Ochocinco and
name names, baby, name names.
Like all these guys are just popping off, and you're like, oh my goodness, like it's not like it's one of those like it's not that serious, dude. Like he just had a bad day. Like he just had a bad day, and it's okay. Right. And the best part is we're arguing over at the time the difference between the third and fourth string, not the starter and it's.
I'm just gonna say any of the people that are out there like perpetuating these narratives that like they're sabotaging him and whatever, like these people are just grifters to me. They are just trying to make their voice sound like louder and get above the fray on Shedeur and like use him as like a platform to like be recognized or whatever. That's my belief. Like I believe that in my heart of hearts that's what's happening here for some of these people. It's just patently ridiculous. And like I'm not gonna and what's been lost in all this, by the way, is that every step of the way, Shedeur Sanders has downplayed it all. He has stayed above it. He hasn't listened to any of that stuff, and he has continually said, he just said it on Thursday, like 2 days before this game. He said, like, when my time comes, I'll be ready. I know I have things to work on. That's not lost on me. He talked about how Tyler Huntley was actually a really good, like, influence on him and, like, gave him some perspective on handling being, like, the scout team quarterback and the third-string quarterback. Like, it was all things that you want to hear from him. He's a good kid. He's going about it the right way. He knows that he's trying to get better. He knows there's things that he has to learn. I think Andrew Barry also said on the broadcast, like the way they're like with Shedeur, that he kind of compared it to like, imagine you know English and then they're telling you got to learn Mandarin. That's basically what he's like. They're like, he has this college playbook in his mind that he learned, and we're now trying to get him up to speed on like an NFL playbook. It's just different. It takes time. And everyone who's like, I had people in my mentions when I said like, it's okay that he had a bad day. These things take time. People were like, here's a list of quarterbacks that started immediately. And it was like Ben Roethlisberger and, so-and-so. And I'm like, okay. And my response was literally, here's a list of quarterbacks that we know that are household names that took a year or two before they played. How about Patrick Mahomes, for example? How about Aaron Rodgers? How about Tom Brady? Like there's three of the all-time greats right there. How about Kurt Warner, who played in the CFL first? Like, what are we doing? Like, for every example of like, well, this guy didn't need time, there's also plenty of examples of guys that did take time. And again, I just go back to saying that's okay. And he understands that. That's what's most important here. But everybody has just ignored the fact that even Shedeur himself has said, I'm getting better, I'm improving, I'm developing. And he's okay with that. Like, maybe he wants to be out there soon, I'm sure. Who wouldn't as a competitor? But if he's not getting it all at once, he understands why. And that's I think, the key.
Germ, can we just imagine for a second that version of Shedeur, the drifting version, hey, I'm not getting – go watch – first of all, I'll stop here. Go watch Dan Orlovsky's breakdown of just 3 or 4 plays of Shedeur took sacks on plays, certainly shouldn't have been sacks. Go watch that. That's a former NFL quarterback saying these things, not a former college Division III quarterback saying these things. But imagine rolling that Shedeur Sanders out against, let's look at that schedule, the Bengals, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Packers, the Lions. Imagine doing that. It would look so much worse. And then you're actually sabotaging the kid because you're killing his confidence and now no one's going to believe in him. How about you let him get confident in doing this? And so that when his time comes, he feels good and he can go out and prove that he can do it and do it at the NFL level. Like, that's not a bad thing. Not.
No, it's not. Listen, it was disappointing because the things that he's done so well throughout camp, I thought those opportunities were there on Saturday. Like, it was, he's been brilliant about like getting rid of the ball quickly and like not trying to do too much. And he just held the ball too long at times. Yes, the protection up front wasn't great other times, and that didn't help his cause. But like,
it could be a real thing, dude. It could be honest to God, a real thing. Hey, I just watched Dylan Gabriel shred it up for a quarter and a half.
Yeah.
I need to go make a statement. And that's a real freaking thing. Like, hey, you can't forget it. Like, regardless, I don't care if they like each other, dislike each other. That's not what it's about. This is 2 professionals in a competition that could determine the rest of their career. The guy in front of him just tore it up, went 12-19, had a perfect 2-minute drill, did it, all of the things. Hey, now Shedeur's pressing. That's when he goes back to drifting. The ball's flying out of his hands. He's trying to make big plays when, dude, drop back, first read's done, hit the check down and go. Like, that's the good stuff. And that's the stuff you learn when you've never been in a quarterback competition before and you've never been in the NFL before. This is the stuff that you learn.
What I was trying to say was, like, he was doing great with those things in training camp, and he did great with those things, those reads in the first preseason game. So I know he can do it. Mm-hmm. He just has to do it consistently. And like, I think people are listen, this is how football is. We're always hyperbolic to one result, the most recent result, whatever. But like, big picture, Shedeur had a really strong camp. He had one really good preseason game. He had one disappointing preseason game. Like, it all is part of the puzzle, but not one of those outcomes defines him totally. The same way that Gabriel's performances, the bad practices where he only completed like 4 passes, like those don't define him totally. They're part of the picture. But his preseason games were better, and you saw some things that you liked. Like, so for both guys, it's just about getting better from here. Clearly, the Browns have confidence in them because they moved on from Kenny Pickett and feel like they can both handle the roles that they're going to be in. And now it's just about when we get to see him play again, which might be for a while. But in the meantime, the Browns are going to reduce their roster later today to 53 players. I'm sure my projection that I put up at si.com/NFL/Browns is going to be completely garbage now, because I've already missed on a couple guys.
100%.
I thought DeAndre Carter was making the team. That didn't happen. I thought that Jackson Barton was making the team. That didn't happen. So I'm bad. I'm off. But hey, it's okay. That's why we do it. It's all for fun. But we'll have plenty of more coverage for you, including the Kenny Pickett trade, which is already written about, and I'm sure we'll have some other opinion pieces based off of that coming down the pike there as well. And as always, I just want to remind you to subscribe to this channel where you can find all your Cleveland Browns content, more content like this, where we break down the big storylines surrounding the team, news from the day, and much, much more. We're getting into the thick of it. Obviously, this week, kind of like an in-between week, but we're less than a week away from really diving in as we count down and get ready for week 1 of the season. So be sure to stick around and stay tuned with us and keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns on SI.